Here's a question I want you to sit with for just a second. If your child knows the whole alphabet by age 3, does that mean they'll do better in school? Most of us would say yes, or at least probably yes, right? That's what we've been told. That's what the entire industry of early childhood products seems to be built around. But here's what developmental research actually suggests. The picture is a lot more complex than that. And getting familiar with that complexity, it might be the most reassuring thing you hear all week. Because there's something happening in your child's brain right now before they ever open a flashcard or touch a phonics app that research suggests may be just as important as any academic skill they could learn, maybe more important. And today on Synapse Studio, we're going to talk about what that something is, what it looks like in everyday life, and what you can actually do with it starting today. So if you've ever felt that quiet flutter of anxiety at the playground, when another parent mentions their 2-year-old already knows the whole alphabet, this one's for you. Let's get into it. Before we go anywhere else, I want to stop and acknowledge something. You're here. You're watching a 20-minute video about your child's development. That already tells me something important about you. Last month, I asked our community a question. What moment this week made you feel like you weren't doing enough? The responses were a lot. One mom wrote that she saw a post about a 3-year-old reading full sentences, and she immediately opened her own kids' preschool app to check their progress. At 11 o'clock at night, a dad said his mother-in-law mentioned that her other grandchild already knows all the letter sounds, and he didn't say anything, but he thought about it for 3 days. Someone else said they bought a workbook for their 4-year-old after a birthday party, where another kid was doing simple addition. They said they're not even sure their kid wanted to do it, but they felt like they had to do something. I read every one of those messages. And the thing I kept noticing is that none of these parents were acting from laziness or carelessness. They were acting from love, from the very understandable, very human fear that they might be missing something important. And that pressure is real. It comes from everywhere. Preschool readiness checklists, milestone comparison charts, educational toy commercials that make you feel like your child is losing ground if they're not learning shapes and numbers by 18 months. Social media doesn't help. You see one video of someone's toddler doing a puzzle that your kid shows zero interest in, and suddenly you're spiraling. The pressure isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. The pressure is a sign that you care deeply about your child's future. That's actually a beautiful thing. But caring doesn't always mean we have the full picture. And today, I want to give you a little more of it. Let's start with the research that first made me look at this differently. Dr. Arnold Gazelle dedicated his career to studying how children actually develop. He was one of the founders of the field of developmental psychology, and he spent decades observing children at different ages, different stages, different paces. What his work helped establish is something that sounds simple, but has really significant implications. Development follows a sequence, and that sequence has its own timing. His research suggests that children reach developmental milestones according to their own individual readiness. And when it comes to academic skills specifically, studies indicate that early acceleration in reading, or letters, doesn't necessarily translate into a lasting, long-term advantage. Children who learn to read at 3 and children who learn to read at 6 tend to reach similar levels of literacy within a few years of each other. Now, I want to be clear about something here. This research does not suggest that early learning is harmful. It's not. Reading to your child, teaching them letters, playing with numbers, all of that is wonderful. All of that matters. What it does suggest is that when we focus exclusively on academic content at the expense of something else, we may be missing a foundational piece. Because what research consistently points to is this. Before a child can effectively take in and retain new learning, certain conditions in their brain and nervous system need to be in place first. And those conditions aren't built by flashcards. They're built by something much closer to home. Let me tell you what Harvard's Center on the Developing Child found when they spent decades looking at what shapes a young child's brain. Their research suggests that early relationships, specifically responsive, consistent caregiving, may actually help shape the developing architecture of a child's brain. I want to sit on that for a second, because it's profound. We tend to think of the brain as something fixed, something you're born with, something you either got lucky with or didn't. But the research suggests it's far more dynamic than that, especially in the first 5 years of life. During this window, the brain is building its core infrastructure, the neural connections that will support attention, memory, language, emotional regulation, problem solving, all of it. And Harvard's research suggests that responsive relationships, having a caregiver who notices what you need, who responds consistently, who helps you feel safe and seen and supported, appear to be associated with healthier development of that infrastructure, meaning before a child can learn phonics, developmental research suggests they may first need to learn something more fundamental. I am safe. I am seen. I can trust the people around me, not as an abstract idea, not as a lesson you teach, but as a lived, felt, daily experience. Because here's what the brain science also suggests. When a child's nervous system is in a state of threat or overwhelm, the part of the brain that's responsible for learning and memory tends to become less accessible. The brain prioritizes safety over academics. That's not a failure. That's biology. And responsive connection is what helps the nervous system feel safe enough to learn. Okay, let's talk about what's actually going on inside your toddler's brain. Because once you see this, a lot of their behavior is going to start making a lot more sense. Imagine your child's brain is a city that's still under construction, not a little bit of construction, like full scale, barriers up, roads closed, crews everywhere, definitely not ready for prime time construction. This city has a lot of neighborhoods, but 2 of them are especially relevant to our conversation today. The first neighborhood we'll call the alarm district. This is the emotion and stress response system. In this neighborhood, it's among the first to be built. It's functional, it's active, and in young children, it tends to be highly sensitive. Its job is to monitor the environment for anything that might need immediate attention. You used the wrong cup? The alarm district takes note. The cracker broke in half? That may register as worth reacting to. Dad shaved his beard and looks slightly different today. Unfamiliar input detected. Research indicates that young children's stress response systems are exquisitely sensitive to change and unpredictability. This appears to be a normal feature of early development, not a flaw. The system is calibrated for a world where noticing differences quickly was important for survival. It just means that what looks like a dramatic overreaction to you may genuinely feel significant to them. Now, the second neighborhood. Let's call it the planning district. This is the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain associated with rational thinking, impulse control, emotional regulation, understanding consequences. The part that helps someone step back, calm down, and make a considered decision. Here's what research from the National Institute of Mental Health indicates about this neighborhood. It develops gradually, over a very long time. The prefrontal cortex is thought to be among the last regions of the brain to reach full maturity. And that process appears to continue well into early adulthood. So here's the picture you're working with every single day. Your child has a highly sensitive alarm system that responds strongly to change and uncertainty. And the part of their brain that could help them manage that reaction, it's still very much a work in progress, which means that when you look your 3-year-old in the eyes during a full meltdown and say, calm down and use your words, you're asking someone whose planning district is still under construction to access skills that district is supposed to provide. It's not going to work every time. Not because your child is being difficult, not because you're doing it wrong, but because the development isn't there yet. Your child is not giving you a hard time. They are having a hard time. And that distinction, it can change the whole way you respond. Here's what that actually looks like on a regular Tuesday afternoon. Your kid gets home from preschool and something's off. You can see it the moment they walk in. That face, that posture. They drop their bag. They find you and they start crying. Real tears. But when you ask, what happened? They say, I don't know. And here's what most of us naturally do. Because we love them and we want to help. We go into problem-solving mode. Are you hungry? Did something happen with your friend? Did someone say something mean? Do you want a snack? Do you want to watch something? Caring. Well-intentioned, completely logical. But Dr. Daniel Siegel at UCLA has described something that helps explain why this sometimes makes things worse before it makes them better. When children are in a state of strong emotion, research suggests that access to the thinking and language parts of the brain may be temporarily reduced. The stress response system is doing a lot of the work in that moment, which means your child isn't ignoring your questions. They may genuinely not be able to process or answer them right now, not because they won't, because the pathway to those answers is temporarily less accessible. So what tends to work differently in that moment? Instead of questions, try presence. You get down to their level. You don't rush to fix anything. You say, hey, I can see something's hard right now. I'm right here. And then you wait. No problem solving. No list of possible solutions. Just, I see you. I'm here. What you've just done is something researchers call co-regulation. And according to the Harvard Center on the Developing Child, responsive. Caregiving in moments of distress appears to be one of the most important things an adult can do for a young child's developing nervous system. Research suggests that young children have a limited capacity to regulate their own emotional states on their own. But when a calm, available adult is present and attuned, the child may be able to borrow that regulation. Your steady presence communicates something to their nervous system that no amount of reasoning can. You're safe. I've got you. And from that place of safety, the thinking brain tends to come back online, often within just a few minutes. And then they start to talk. Now, here's where I want to bring it back to the learning question we started with, because this is the connection that changed how I think about all of it. Dr. David Whitebread at Cambridge University studied what kinds of early experiences tend to support children's learning capacity, not just in preschool, across their school years. And what his research suggests is that the children who tend to thrive academically over time are not necessarily the ones who started with the most academic content. They're the ones with stronger executive function skills. Things like the ability to pay attention, manage frustration, stay flexible when something is hard, and persist through difficulty. The American Academy of Pediatrics pointed to this directly in a major report. Research indicates that free, unstructured play tends to support the development of executive function skills. And executive function is associated with school readiness and academic performance in ways that early letter knowledge alone may not predict. What develops executive function? Not drills, not worksheets, co-regulation, responsive relationships, and play. So here's the reframe. Teaching your child their letters isn't harmful. Exploring books and numbers and songs together is wonderful. The foundation isn't either. The research suggests it's sequential. When kids feel emotionally secure, when they've had enough co-regulation, enough connection, enough free play, the academic learning often comes more naturally and sticks more readily. The roots support the branches. You're not behind. You're building the roots. Let's get practical. Here are 3 things research suggests tend to support this foundation, and that you can actually try today. First, name what you see. Research in this area suggests that when adults label children's emotions out loud, it may help children develop greater awareness of their own internal states. And that emotional awareness is associated with self-regulation over time. It doesn't have to be complex. It might just sound like, "You seem really frustrated right now." It makes sense that you're upset. You're not telling them how to feel. You're reflecting what you're observing. And that reflection tends to help children feel understood, which is often what they need before they can shift out of a difficult state. When they feel their experience is real and recognized, things often start to move. Second, connection before correction. Dr. Ross Green's research on children who display challenging behavior suggests that the kids who seem most difficult are often the ones who most lack the skills to do differently in a given moment. Not the will, the skills. And what tends to help build those skills over time? It's not consequence in the heat of the moment. It's a felt sense of safety with the adults in the room. Before you address the behavior, before the lesson, before the correction, try to establish connection first. In practice, this can be small, getting down to their level, a steady voice, making eye contact before you say anything else. Something that signals, I'm with you, even right now. Connection first, then correction. The idea is that a regulated nervous system is more available to learning. Safety enables teaching. Third, protect unstructured play. I know this one can feel like you're not doing enough. It looks like nothing from the outside, but research from the American Academy of Pediatrics and others suggests that free, child-directed play, the kind without a performance goal, without a structured outcome, is one of the primary ways young children practice and develop self-regulation. When kids are building something, negotiating the rules of a game, figuring out what to do when something doesn't go as planned, when the tower falls or a friend disagrees, they're actually practicing the exact executive function skills that support later learning. No direction required from you. In fact, less is more here. Find 20 minutes today. Let them play with zero agenda and know that every minute of it is doing something real. Now I want to talk about something that doesn't get said enough. You're going to have moments you're not proud of. Moments where you snapped when you didn't mean to. Where you were distracted when they needed you present. Where you said something in a tone you wished you could take back. All of that is going to happen. It happens to every parent. And here's what the research suggests about those moments. Dr. Ed Tronick at Harvard studied something called rupture and repair in early relationships. His research, including what became known as the still face studies, helped show that even in healthy, loving relationships, attunement between parent and child is not constant. Research suggests that even in secure, well-functioning relationships, parents and children may be in a state of genuine connection only a portion of the time, and that's okay. What Tronick's work indicates is that it's the repair that matters, not the rupture. When you come back after a disconnected moment, when you say, I got frustrated and I raised my voice and I shouldn't have, and I love you, you are giving your child something genuinely important. You're showing them that relationships can break and come back together, that you can be honest about mistakes. That connection is something you keep choosing, not something that disappears when things go wrong. Research suggests that this repair process may actually contribute to the development of trust and emotional security over time. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be the parent who comes back. Let me try to put this whole picture together before we close. Here's what the developmental research suggests when you look at it as a whole. Development is sequential. Academic learning is part of the journey, but certain conditions in the brain and nervous system appear to support that learning readiness. And those conditions are built, in large part, through early relationships and responsive caregiving. Emotional security tends to be associated with better learning outcomes. Connection appears to support the development of self-regulation, and self-regulation is linked to many of the skills we associate with academic success. That's not a reason to stop teaching letters and numbers. It's a reason to make sure that foundation is in place alongside them. Education appears to begin with relationship, not as a metaphor, as a developmental reality. The researchers would put it this way. Before a child can learn I before E, they may first need to learn that I am safe, I am seen, and the person in front of me is someone I can trust. And that's what I want you to take with you today. Not guilt about what you haven't done, not anxiety about what the research says you should be doing differently, because here's the truth about you. specifically. You watch this whole video. You're thinking about your child's development with curiosity and care. You feel that pull toward doing right by them every single day. Research on child outcomes consistently suggests that parental warmth and responsiveness, the kind of engaged, caring attention you're already showing just by being here, is among the most consistent predictors of healthy development. You are not behind. You are already doing the work. So the next time your kid comes home in that mood, the next time they dissolve over something that seems small, the next time you're not sure what to do, and you just get down on the floor and say, "I'm right here," know that you're not choosing between connection and education. You're choosing connection as the foundation for everything that follows. Say this to yourself, out loud if you want, or just let it land quietly. I am not raising a test score. I am raising a human being. My child doesn't need a perfect parent. They need a present one. And connection builds the foundation for everything that follows. That's what I'm building every single day. All right, thank you for being here today. If something in this video felt useful, I'd love it if you hit subscribe. We put out new content every week on the science of child development and what it actually looks like in real parenting life. Not just theory, real, everyday application. And leave a comment below. Tell me one thing from this video that you're going to try this week. Because the most valuable thing in this community isn't the research. It's the real stories from real parents who are figuring this out alongside each other. If you haven't had a connection before correction moment this week yet, now you have one to aim for. Go try it. Come back and tell us how it went. See you next week.